hit record. And you are good to go.
Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, June 17th, 2020, and this is a City Council work session. And I'm Doug Morton, and the Council President, filling in for Mayor Rick Schull. Would everyone like to care to introduce themselves before we get started? We'll start with Matt.
Matt Brown, Assistant City Administrator.
John Walsh, City Administrator.
Steve Topaz, Councilman.
Really quiet audio.
Jenny Carlson, Counselor.
Keith Locke, Counselor.
Claire Cat has no audio.
Got it. Okay, we got every, Steve Topaz, we need better audio, I believe. We could barely hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay. It's a distance problem.
It's 1:03 p.m. and we'll call the work session to order. And we now have time for visitor comments. It's limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Do I hear any or see any? Raise your hand. Matt, do you see any?
Yes, I do see Brandon Sundin that would like to speak. So hang on, Brandon. I'm going to unmute you. Brandon, you are unmuted if you would like to speak.
All right.
Brandon, are you there?
Everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Hi, guys. I think I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of you already. I just wanted to stop by real quick and voice my concerns about the condition of the Veterans Memorial in McCormick Park. I've spent a lot of time there. I guess it's kind of near and dear to my heart because I spent a couple of years volunteering time to research the names on there. So I go down there quite a bit and walk around and look at the names. And just over the past few months, it started to look a little rough. And was kind of hoping to see it cleaned up before Memorial Day. On Memorial Day, my family and I went to the memorials. We started up the highway. We went to Claskanai. We went to Columbia City. We went to Scappoose. Every one of them was immaculate. There was no weeds. They were edged. They just looked beautiful. Flower arrangements, flags, just very presentable. And then it was just kind of upsetting to come to St. Helens, which was the newest memorial out of the whole bunch, 6 months old, full of weeds and long grass and branches and debris and dead plants. So just kind of disheartening. I know there's a lot of people in the community that donated a lot of time and money and material, and just makes me wonder why we're going to have it if it's not going to be maintained. So I went down this weekend. The St. Helens Youth Council did a great job of getting it started, but there's a lot, I think, of work that could be done yet. So going forward, I just hope there's some kind of plan in place to make sure that that memorial is kept up and beautiful every day of the year, not just on Veterans Day or Memorial Day, but truly, if there's any place in our city that I think should be kept up and beautiful, I think it should be that. So that's all I had to say. I just wanted to, I debated on whether I should come and say anything, but I think it needed to be brought up. So thank you for your attention.
Brandon, we really appreciate your good words, and this is kind of segue into Councilor Carlson, as she took the youth council down there and did a phenomenal job of cleaning up the one area. It's quite noteworthy, and it goes to show that the youth council does show pride. And Councilor Carlson, do you want to say anything about the cleanup that happened down there this past weekend?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, the kids work for 2 hours and that's kind of their limit for volunteering. We went as far as we could in 2 hours. I had seen the photos that were on social media, and because of social distancing and the park being closed, I hadn't been over there to see what condition it was in, and that's obviously not my area, but I was concerned enough to kind of give it cuts in the list of projects for the youth and offered it to them, and they were right on it. It was out of their meeting cycle. We just put it on the calendar as soon as we possibly could to get it done. And I recognized there was more area to be done, but it's like one of those things, you know, everybody has to do a little to get us through this, you know, with staffing shortages and what have you. You know, you have to start somewhere. And I spoke with Brandon at some length there, and we just, you know, we need a better process for keeping up on stuff like that. You know, if staff can't get to it, it would have been nice if I would have known that. We could have put it on the calendar earlier in the spring, if we would have realized that. But, you know, it's like one of those things. I'm not going to kick myself in the foot because I did it. It's like one of those things. It takes a village to make a community great. And I appreciate the efforts of the kids. But Brandon went through a lot of work, and just seeing the photo of it and just, you know, not cleaned up was very upsetting to me. And that's why I thought at the very minimum we could, you know, put a good effort in for a couple hours, which was nice. And lots of people said lots of nice things about the monument while we were there. But it definitely, you know, got the kids' attention, and they're looking forward to doing several more projects in our parks over the summer months. So, but it's a beautiful place.
Jenny, thank you, and it is, and speaks well for the Youth Council, and very much appreciated. I got alerted about the area, and I went over to see that on Thursday, and tried to pay the parks people a visit on Friday, and got to them, and then, you know, I believe you did that on Saturday. It's great. And anyway, thank you. Any other topics?
I do see Patrick Berkeley. I will unmute you. You may need to unmute yourself, Patrick.
There we go. Hi.
Hi, Patrick.
I wasn't going to say. Hi. I wasn't going to say anything, but I really appreciate Brandon's comments, and would like to suggest that perhaps Brandon or others look at kind of a model that is being used with some of our friends group for the maintenance of Nob Hill Park, Dalton Lake Nature Preserve. That's some kind of group. Now, I don't know that this would include the VFW or the folks like that, although they might be folks who'd be interested, but kind of a Friends of McCormick or a Friends of the Veterans Memorial, who would be recognized as a group, and have you know, the city maybe put out a call. I think the reality is with the budget and future work that the city public works and park staff is already stretched and doing great work. But I do believe the future of St. Helens will include, not only at our parks, but maybe in some of our other public spaces, greater use of volunteers, stewards in the maintenance of these types of things. So that might be a model to pursue with the Veterans Memorial, kind of the friends of or stewards of memorial, to make sure that there's regular and consistent maintenance, because I do believe it is beyond the capacity of the city, given the current budget and staffing, to do the job that really is required. And as you know, that's no reflection on the dedication of our public works and parks people, but it's just the reality of the time. I'm done.
Thank you, Pat. And of course we do. There's two groups that you did leave off, and that's the Garden Club that keeps up the entryway to McCormick Park there. And another group is the Kiwanis Daybreakers that keep up our Walnut Tree Park. And it's, you know, we do have those groups out there. It's just a matter of getting them organized, and a matter of revealing the need at specific times, especially when the grass grows in the spring. Because I totally agree with you. The parks people are very busy this time, and very few of them to work. Any other comments?
I do not see anybody else, Doug.
Okay, we have, next on the agenda is the employee length of service award. John, do we happen to have any today by chance?
We do. Dylan Gaston is on the phone, or on the call here, and it's his 5-year service award today. I'm not sure today's the exact day, but it's the anniversary of 5 years. Typically, we have a handshake and a certificate and a picture, and that's probably not going to happen. So,
okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Oh, yes.
I had to phone in. So this is Mayor Scholl phoned in.
Okay, Rick, do you have the agenda in front of you?
I do.
Okay, we're down on employee length of service award. It's all yours.
Okay, so did we finish that up, the employee length of service award?
other than thanking him for his service, and look forward to 5 more.
Yes, thank you for your service.
Need to offer about 20 air hugs.
Sounds good. I appreciate you guys.
Okay, so moving on to annual insurance report. Chris Iverson.
Hello, one and all. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Okay. Well, it's that time of year again when we're going to sit and look and talk about, I say sit and look, but I guess we're going to sit and talk about the insurance and the renewal of the insurance. City County Insurance Services is still the best avenue. Virtually every city and county in the state, unless they're self-insured or City County does not want them, is insured with City County. We've got the renewal numbers in, and it went up about $35,000 this year, which is a fairly substantial increase. And I've been researching reasons why that did that, but much of the reasons are listed. I've listed on the 2-page or the pages that I sent out that Kathy sent to you. We added a lot of new vehicles. We added some equipment. We did take some of the old vehicles off, but of course the newer vehicles just cost more to insure. CIS overall had about a 14% increase in their property rates, and this was across the board. This was not just for the city of St. Helens, and that's the basis they started from. And then if you had claims or other issues, of course, those could have gone up and down. We stayed pretty close to that number. They also trend the property values up every year. They trended the property values up by about 3%, and that's to keep up with inflation, with cost of construction, just the cost to rebuild a building or repair a building if it's messed up. The other issue that's driving the premium is you guys are just growing. You're not a little city anymore. You're getting to be a medium-sized city. Your budgets are getting bigger. You're just growing. We've a lot of things are changing. You guys know that better than everybody. But those were the major driving forces for the premium increases. Usually I come to you too, and I talk a little bit about losses, and usually we do pretty good. But I have to tell you that last year we got our hats handed to us. We had a lot of losses last year for some pretty big money. No fault of the city or the staff or anybody else. They were just things that happened. CIS has reserved and or paid out already $547,670 for claims for last year alone. They've all out of that 547, they've paid out about $215,904. A large portion of that was the cyber liability claim. We had several cyber liabilities. I know you're all aware of that. They have about 320,000 of that 500,000 is reserved and paid out for that cyber liability stuff, they've already paid out 147 of that 320 and are expecting to pay more. So those were the major driving issues. There are no other markets that have come out, with the exception as I did go out looking for cyber coverage. CIS, because of the claim that we had, the large claim that we had, it gave us a $100,000 deductible on our cyber insurance. So I went outside and went shopping for that. Having said that, we've got 100,000. They gave us a $100,000 deductible. 50,000 of that is covered under the CIS form. So we'd have a net 50,000 deductible, and so pretty big deductible. But I went out and I found another market that would quote it and would only give us a give us a $10,000 deductible, but the minimum they would quote was $1 million worth of coverage. We currently have 500,000, but the premium on that is $15,230, which is, a pretty big premium. It is extremely broad coverage, but it's a pretty large premium. So that's a good question. I'm going to need some direction on which way you want to go with that. I asked CIS to quote $1 million worth of coverage because I see these cyber claims growing and growing and growing, and I'm seeing more and more and more cyber claims, not just with public entities, but throughout the industry. They're just growing by leaps and bounds. This claim, I told you the numbers on it here just a little bit ago, is a very large claim, one of the bigger ones that I've had in my office. But I'm hearing, and I'm sure you heard of them too, of these bigger stores and things like that getting multi-million-dollar claims for cyber liability and cyber issues. But anyway, so that's essentially the highlights of this year's insurance renewal, and I just would open it up to any questions you have.
I had a question, just because of other places that I see the insurance. Are there offerings with cities to reduce the auto policy?
They are not. I have not seen anything from CIS.
Well, I mean like specific to where, like they put GPS on all the vehicles at my other job. The little thing that says if you're speeding, it reports back to your employer, that thing.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with those, and I actually have customers that have a lot of those in their vehicles. And Jenny, I haven't seen CIS come out with anything like that, any incentives or discounts for that. I can certainly go back and ask them, but normally that's something that would they'd be really bragging about and telling me, oh, we're going to give you a discount for this. And I just haven't seen that yet, but I'll make an inquiry. Thank you.
I've seen those little devices that you mount, and I've also seen safe driving courses and the phone numbers printed on lots of different things that, nonprofits in particular do to reduce their auto policy. And as our fleet is growing, it's like you got to find a pressure relief valve because that number is getting bigger with the number of vehicles you have.
Absolutely. And vehicle insurance is one of the hot buttons right now in the industry. So you're exactly right. It's I insure a lot of public entities. I insure a lot of large employers with big fleets, and I haven't seen anybody in any of the ones I insure come out with a real good discount for any of that kind of stuff. But I kind of think that's coming, but I haven't seen too much of it yet.
Okay, it's a lot of the private markets are offering it for personal coverage, so I just was asking. Thank you.
And I'll follow up on it, Jenny, and I'll get back to staff, and they can let everybody know.
I speak for myself, obviously, but anything that we can do that is proactive to reduce our bill, it would be great. I don't want to reduce services. I want to make our budget, as tight as we possibly can, because every dollar is so important.
Yes, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think that the council was extremely smart in increasing the limits on the cyber coverage. Was 1 year ago, 2 years ago, and that really paid dividends for us in the last year with the huge claim that we had. But we also want to try to control costs wherever we can.
Thank you.
I was going to make the same point. A lot of the communities around that did get cyber attacks didn't up their limits like we did. Made that decision, and it's paid dividends here. So, the decision before us is kind of influenced a little bit in my mind by what we did in the past to kind of take that chance. But 500,000 from CIS or to go on another market with a lot higher premiums, kind of a question, I suppose, with the council.
Oh, well, I finally made it in, by the way.
Yeah, I can see you.
So is CIS not covering cyber, or they're just talking about future bigger claims, bigger, better insurance? I was kind of confused.
CIS is still offering cyber, and they're still offering higher limits. We have higher limits.
Yes.
They give us 50,000 automatically in their form, and then they go out and buy reinsurance. And like I said, I remember it was 1 year ago, 2 years ago. I brought it to you to the council, and you guys chose to go with $500,000, buy an additional 450,000. With our recent claims history last year, the reinsurer will not let us go to $1 million. CIS originally quoted $1 million for me. I sent it to John and Kathy and Matt, and we were discussing it. And then 2 days ago, they sent me an email and said, "Oh, we made a mistake because of the claims. We can't offer $1 million to St. Helens." So I had already been out shopping the account for cyber with other carriers, and this is the best quote I found, and it's $1 million limit. So did that explain, Rick, what I'm?
Sure. Okay.
Okay. But it's a lot more money. I mean, it's another $13,000-$14,000 than over what you're paying right now. But the coverage is also very broad. So.
Well, I think we need to go with it. I mean, with what's happened in Tillamook County and other areas, I think Bend as well. Am I correct? And Bend, did Bend get under a cyber attack?
I don't remember Bend getting hit, but I've sure heard of a lot of places. This is just my office in St. Helens, Oregon. I bet we've had a half a dozen of these in the last year, cyber type claims. That's a lot.
Yes.
It really is. And it's happening more and more, and they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
And more complex and quicker and better about attacking the computers.
And staff did an excellent job
of
catching this. They caught it right at the beginning, which is really unusual. And they've got it reserved for $320,000. And they imagine if they would have been in there for 3 or 4 days over a weekend or something like that, the damage they could have done.
Yep.
So it does worry me. I know we got a pretty substantial increase this year, but
so it's 30,000 increase and an additional 13 for the extra coverage.
It's a $35,222 over last year, but a lot of that, like I said, is driven by just the business you're doing. You're growing. But yeah, and then I didn't do the math between what the CIS, I can tell you quickly what it is. Right now for sex crime, you're paying $2,722. And then this quote is $15,230. So
with the deductibles being CIS being 100,000 and this new policy being 10,000.
That is correct. Net deductible to you would be 50,000, but you are correct. It's $12,508 more. So if you had one claim in roughly what, three and a half years, you would make up that difference in the.
In just a lot, yes. Yep.
So, I mean,
seems like a no-brainer to me. I mean, we're at CIS is our only coverage. We are automatically getting an increase no matter what, and then an additional 15 is for a $10,000 liability, or not liability, but the premium out of pocket money is pretty no-brainer.
Well, I went back to the underwriter and talked to her about the increase. And her comment to me was, there are a lot of people out there that would like to have the percentages of increase. A lot of other cities and counties out there that would like to have the percentages of increase that St. Helens got this year. You know, because I think you guys do a good job. You've got the risk management team. You know, you take an active role in trying not to have the claims, and I think staff does an outstanding job of that. So, anyway.
Other questions for Chris?
Just now that Doug's back, that maybe we just do, we need more discussion. You guys want to do a thumbs up on the additional insurance?
Anybody else? That's what I was asking for, Keith.
He had to restate it for the people over 40.
Well, that's funny because I'm 47.
Oh, well. I just was calling you a kid. I don't mean any insult.
But I am 10 years younger than the next oldest person. So. Okay, so I got a thumbs up.
Mr. Topaz put his thumb up.
Okay.
Okay, looks like we're good.
I'm fine with it.
Yep. Yep. Okay.
Okay. I will go ahead and renew this. I'm going to cancel the cyber coverage in CIS, and I'm going to go ahead and get this policy rolling, and I'll work with the staff to let them know what we need to do that. And this will happen by renewal. We'll get it done by renewal.
Okay, Chris, we appreciate you.
Well, hey, thank you guys, and I appreciate it, and I really appreciate working with staff. They do a great job for me. It makes my job better and easier.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Okay, annual report from Planning Commission, Historical Landmarks Commission, Jacob Greichen, our city planner.
Thank you, Mayor. So, as has happened since we've been doing this, except 1 year, the Planning Commission elected to send staff to the wolves instead of one of their own. So that's why I'm here. And the Planning Commission's different from the other commissions and committees because usually they don't have to find work, the work comes to them. And so this is the same reporting format that we've done for several years, where we just kind of look at things numerically and then at the end talk about what the concerns of the Planning Commission were. So number of meetings, last year we had 11. This year we had 10, and the only reason we had 10 was because we lost April to the COVID stuff. We weren't sure what was going on, so that was ended up being delayed. And it's always weird. It seems like November is the meeting that ends up nothing happening. So comparable number of meetings, number of public hearings. Last year was 20, this year was 18. Excuse me, so not a big difference there. One of the things that the Planning Commission has are what we call acceptance agenda items. And these are for more significant decisions that staff does, administrative decisions, things like site development review, where, for example, right now I have a grocery store on my desk for review, and that doesn't go to public hearing, but it is substantial. So the Planning Commission has an opportunity to kind of look at the work we did and make a motion to accept. And it's kind of a check and balance that lets them go, hey, what about this? What about that? Just to make sure we're not doing any funny business in our administration of permits. And another comparable, okay, so, and then last year there was 22 of those. This year there was 12. So about half as last year. Planning director decisions, these are lesser administrative decisions like sign permits, temporary use permits, things like that. They receive notice of them, but they don't make any formal vote. But if it does give them opportunity to think about it and then ask questions at a following meeting if they have any. This year we had 54, last year we had 72. I should point out though, if you recall us reworking our home occupation regulations, before we had a type 1 and type 2, and we got to the point where this is stupid, these type 1s are kind of a waste of time. So now we have a type 2, we have a lot less home occupations. Home occupation people are a lot happier because it's one less step to go through. And I did think it affected that number a little bit. It probably would have been more than 54 if we kept those. Another category that the commission has at their meetings are discussion items and workshops. And those are very comparable. Last year we had 10, this year we had 11. And a lot of it's typical stuff that we discussed, the certified local government grant, development code amendments, just administration of the committee itself. Of course, the historic landmarks inclusion, we have that new building, so they looked at that. And then we had some interview committee for a new planning commissioner as well. Another category, which doesn't always happen every year, and that's architectural review. What that is that is where we have a building in the Riverfront District that's not an official historic building, but is still subject to our architectural standards. We had 2 of those this year, 2 of those last year. Projects and process, at least, of course, the date of this is May. And at that time, the big project we had going on that the Planning Commission was involved in was our floodplain and accessory structure amendments. Those are done. So that's fantastic. And stuff in the future, state law is requiring us to change some of our housing codes. And one thing coming up for us are to make duplexes comparable to dwellings as far as how they're permitted and regulated. And that's something we have to have in place by June of next year. And if we don't have it in place, then we're stuck with the state's rules. And we did have some meetings with the state on that. One of the things, if I recall right, is if we do nothing and the state rules take effect, 0 parking is required for duplexes. And parking is always a very controversial issue from a housing affordability standpoint, but some of the streets, that would be interesting. So we are proposing to develop code that'll be in the nearer future of the Planning Commission. Ideally, we'd be able to add some other stuff to that, such as cottage cluster code amendments, but we'll just have to play that by ear by everything else going on. So one of the questions that the council asks of the commission is, what can the council do to support the commission? And this year, the commission said that they would like to have a joint discussion, work session meeting with the council. This has happened maybe twice, maybe 3 times since I've been here as part of some grant efforts like the corridor plan and the riverfront connector. And I think there's been some decisions where they've made a decision and then the council changes it. And they're thinking, what changed here? And I think part of it is that, and part of it's just to be on the same page. They talked about long-range planning issues, housing, riverfront development, and things like that. The preference would be in person, not in Zoom. And I don't think there's necessarily we need to do this immediately, but eventually they would like to have a joint work session. And so maybe we can look at that in the fall or winter. Of course, that's something for the council to discuss.
I think that's a great idea. I think we definitely need to be on the same page as far as where we see as well, because we listen to the community and probably get a lot more push than Planning Commission on certain projects. And I think that's a great idea.
I think it'd be good just for team building, making sure people on the same page, communication goes a long way.
Yep. Because
I totally agree, and I do believe that visioning is also important, to have the appropriate vision of what our community stands for and what they want, and what we can do, basically what the state expects out of us as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I don't think we've ever actually really had a meeting on how they run and how we run, because we're kind of a little bit not opposite, but we're a little bit we see things from a different view, and they need to understand our view sometimes, because I've heard from Planning Commission that we folded before, and I thought that's kind of odd, because the council made the decision and you're telling me we folded on this decision. So I would like, yeah, I would love to have that meeting. It's never been talked about.
So I think we'll probably bring that up once summer's over and see where it fits, especially given the COVID-19 stuff, which creates uncertainty in meetings.
I had one comment after Jacob's report. I just wanted to thank Jacob for all of his hard work this past year. Thanks for holding the peace in the meetings, because people are very passionate about their buildings and their plans, and they don't like it when decisions don't go their way. And I just appreciate that he keeps the meeting professional and keeps us on track. Just wanted to publicly thank him for the efforts of keeping a cooler head in a stressful situation. So thank you for that, Jacob.
Yeah.
And Jenny too, but Jacob's usually the one that's got the smackdown stick. So
yeah.
So thanks a lot.
Jacob, I have a couple questions about, well, I have just one that I'll leave you with. It's about the Historic Landmarks Commission. And do they review, I know that, they review plans and the permits or whatever for any additions or any kinds of things happening with a historical landmark building. What about, and this is kind of tricky in some senses, what about people are putting up lean-tos and things that are not permitted with a historical building? I've had a couple of comments about, in particular, about one on in plain view of on Columbia Boulevard that is out of compliance without a doubt. And so, and this is a historic building. And so it's a residence. And does a commission review those kinds of issues? Or who is it? How does that all function? If I had a historical building and in the historic sector, and I wanted to put a woodshed in the back, and I propped up a woodshed, and apparently that's okay, then I also wanted to add on a little bit of a garage, and that seems to be okay, because none of that I don't think went before the Historic Commission. And if that's the case, then who monitors this?
It's a good question, and sometimes a planning commissioner will say, hey, I noticed this, what's going on there? The first line of defense is observation and enforcement. And if it can be resolved via enforcement, it may not even get to the Planning or Historic Landmarks Commission.
So the person who made me, the citizen who made me aware of that, the best thing I could say is, hey, draft a letter to the Historic Commission and maybe they can act on it. Was that the correct response?
It would go to staff first, because we may not need to burden the commission. If it's an enforcement issue, and it's possible, if it's a shed, can the shed even legally be there based on other standards that may not even address, historic may be another layer, but if there's a first layer, well, it's within 3 feet of a property line, can't do that. That may be the issue that needs to get resolved before it even gets to the commission. So it really would start with staff.
Okay. We go through our code enforcement or Michael DeRosa, right? Our building official.
Yeah, we work with code enforcement. They don't know all the rules, and so they check with us. And, some issues could be a building code violation, or they could be a development code violation. And, if it's building code, it goes to Mike. If it's development code, it goes to planning.
Okay.
In our wonderful, complex world.
Oh, and then the other thing, and I don't know if it's appropriate, the kids have started working on the historic landmarks list.
Oh, good.
Since school let out, and if you want to explain what we're doing, but since school let out, we've just started that this week.
Okay, yeah, I was actually wondering what happened with that. So I think we've talked with the council about this, but as a reminder, at the very least, and for some of the other people listening. So Councilor Carlson, she's always looking for things for the youth council to do. And she's just been asking me for years, I think, God, can you think of anything? And we have our historic landmarks list, and we actually updated it this year. And so now we have a new map and stuff like that. And the one thing I thought would be cool for them to do would be able to present that list to the council, taking pictures and doing stuff like that. So you can really relearn about our local historic landmarks to gain further appreciation and simply knowledge of them. Because a list is one thing, but an enthusiastic group of youth in front of you with these pictures talking about is a whole other thing, which I just think will help spread awareness and gives them kind of a cool task to work on too. Because who doesn't think historic preservation and structures are cool?
Yes, they are. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay, Jacob, thank you for all your hard work. Is there anything else you wanted to report on?
That's it.
Okay. So let's go to our associated planner report. Jenny Doomshow.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. So I'm going to try to keep this short, and I'm going to do what I normally do, which is run through my email that I send to Jacob every month for my department report and just touch on some of the highlights. So I always divide it into grants and non-grants, and grants usually take up the majority of my email. So I'll go through those first. So first I wanted to say, looking towards the future, so future grants. In the last 2 months, so April and May, we submitted 3 grant requests for just under $10 million. And I just want to say, like, that is a huge undertaking, especially for a community this size. And so I feel really proud about that. And I couldn't have done it without John's support and Rachel's support. The majority of that was in the build grant request. And then the other 2 grants were both recreation focused and on the boardwalk piece of our riverfront connector, or our riverfront redevelopment project. So huge. I mean, that's massive. So on other grants that are currently under management. So the St. Helens Industrial Business Park master plan is well underway. We got our parcelization plan draft back, and I'm happy to say that there are 37 parcels in this preliminary plan. So that's really exciting. I think it's fun to think about 37 industrial sites and 37 industrial users. Obviously that's really long term, but excited about that. So that's underway and anticipated to be completed by fall 2020. Our 5th Street Trail, if you haven't been down there, it's done. I may have already said that. We're just working on some simple signage at this point. And we're also getting a small survey done to identify a property pin where the trail kind of gets a little bit close. And we just want to make sure with maintenance that we're not crossing onto private property there. But otherwise, that project has wrapped up. The food bank. So community development block grant, we are still set to go out to bid for the general contractor for that $1.5 million effort. Currently, Mike is, if he hasn't submitted his building permit review, he is about to. And then once Mike sends that to our architect, the architect will make any changes to the construction drawings, and then those drawings will get incorporated into that bid document that the contractor will bid on. So moving forward there, we successfully finished our CLG grant. So that's the grant that we get every 2 years for historic preservation. You may have noticed the theater has a brand new marquee. We're waiting on some really great photos to get at night when everything's lit up. And then we'll submit our final report to the state. very soon. Let's see, we kicked off our Safe Routes to School sidewalk project. So we have our design and engineering firm working on preliminary design. See, we have a construction timeline for that now. Let's see, okay, so non-grants. Before I move on, are there any questions about those projects before I move on to non-grants?
So basically, the food bank is getting all the drawing and stuff, and then it'll go out for bid for the contractor to do the work. Correct?
Yeah, yep. And then we're planning on publishing the bid in the Chronicle for local contractors to be able to see it and bid on it. And then also the Daily Journal of Commerce will post, which is our process.
So that could be as soon as a couple months out. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I mean, we're hoping early July, mid-July. But it just depends on how big Mike's revisions on the building permit might be and how long it takes to make the revisions in the.
Can you imagine how that's going to look with the veterinarian clinic in there right now, and then that across the way? It's going to look different right there.
It's going to be awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
Driving down that street is it's going to be a different feel for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so non-grants. The Millard Road signalization project has a construction timeline now. That's a project ODOT is managing. The new project manager is super supportive of our entrance sign. So there's 3 agencies that have to approve an entrance sign location. So you have ODOT Highway, ODOT Rail, and then the operators of the rail. So we have a process, we have an application, we're gonna fill it out, we're gonna submit a site plan and get a location approved. We even have a budget for the sign. We just don't have an idea of what it'll cost to bring electricity to the sign because we want it to be internally illuminated so it looks great at night. But it's great that we have ODOT support. Once we get a location approved, then we can move forward on finding funding.
And I know that you have been working very hard with ODOT Rail in particular.
Well, and it's just been, the signalization project has gone through like 7 different project managers through the years. So it's been a challenge for sure. So the last thing I want to touch on is the Urban Renewal Agency update. So you may remember we've been talking about updating our revenue projections. The preliminary results are done. And we know that there's obviously a projected dip and it's taking longer to see the revenues we were hoping for because of Armstrong. And so right now we're formulating a recommendation to kind of kickstart the agency and get it to revenues that we hope to see in the future. So we hope to have a recommendation before you. It's likely going to involve an amendment to the boundary, adding some area back in, but at this time we're still just kind of figuring out what that looks like. So that's all I have.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions for Jenny?
Well, just a comment on the entrance sign. That's been more of a marathon than a sprint for sure, with all the turnover in staff, and you're constantly dealing with new people and tri-agencies and changes of mind and opinion. But Jenny's stuck with it.
Why do you suppose it changed hands so many times?
Because it's government.
I keep hearing ODOT is constantly restructuring, and now I'm hearing from ODOT Highway that ODOT Rail is currently under reconstruction. So, government.
But it is still moving forward. That project is still going to happen.
Well, and optimistically, I think the project manager understands the importance of wayfinding and an entrance sign and how it can slow traffic down at a new signal. I mean, I think that's the major goal, is to get people to start going the speed limit before Gable. That whole section where it's still 45. And we know signage is a good traffic calming measure.
So that, but minus just that sign, is the project is still set to start when?
I'd have to look at their schedule, but I know they have, maybe Sue or Jacob knows the project schedule, but it is on their website. They have a full design and engineering and then actual construction schedule.
because everybody you know around here says I'll see it when I believe it, or I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, so
Yeah. Funding has been committed. It is moving forward.
good.
But what happened, Mayor, is, so yes, it's been a slow, agonizing effort, and the construction timeline has kept getting pushed back. And so I was of the same, well, God, is this ever going to happen? And ODOT reached out to the county and city because they were working on their construction plans, and they needed what's called a land use compatibility statement. It just says the local jurisdiction, you know, is okay with it. It complies with their policies, plans, etc. And so when that came to us, we're like, hey, wait a minute. This is an opportunity to open dialogue about that sign. And so we started that, and actually the ODOT planner, who Jenny mentioned, who's been really supportive, he mentioned, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And so, yeah, sometimes government is slow, but luckily with some of these things that we have, like these compatibility statements that get governments to work together, that was really the catalyst to open up this conversation once again. And now, you know, they're well aware of it, and Jenny's working on making sure, you know, we have our foot in the door.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
A quick question on grants.
Yeah.
I and John have talked about going after a grant from the Maritime Group about putting in a kayak landing. And basically, the first thing was a design grant. Is that on the schedule, or is that under the heat?
Yeah, so the Oregon State Marine Board just opened up two different cycles. One is for non-motorized and one is for motorized boating facilities. And as you know, Great Cliffs is slated for a non-motorized boat launch area. And we just recently installed restrooms out there. The parking lot was improved. And so we think an in-water facility is a great addition to that park. So in looking at those grant options, it seems like we would be more competitive if we completed design and engineering before applying for a capital grant. And Oregon State Marine Board has a technical assistance program, and they will do some design and engineering and or permitting for us. But we just have to get in a queue. And so we're in conversations with the grant coordinator who manages that, and hopefully we'll get in their queue and start the design and engineering process for some in-water facility that is ADA accessible.
And just for the record, Jenny, the Parks Commission weighed in on that issue, and they had recommended that that we go ahead on that. So there's some momentum with our citizens and with that commission.
Great, yeah, and I think Sue brought that up at the last Parks Commission. We were unsure at that point if we were going to apply for a full capital grant, and so I wanted their support in a letter. But at this time, it looks like we might just be able to do technical assistance with Oregon State Marine Board to further the design first.
Great.
Yeah. Thanks for asking, Councilor Topaz.
Anytime.
Okay, any other questions for Jenny before we let her go? So thank you, Jenny. Okay, review council goals and projects. Do we have a slideshow for this, or is this something we just want to talk about? I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in our evening session, some of this.
Mr. Mayor, I don't think there was a slideshow prepared for this.
Okay. So, but basically, we're still moving forward as a city with our council goals. We understand that the public needs don't stop because of a pandemic. We are fiscally being responsible. With our budget increase of only $1 million, we have a very good prudent reserve that we had started to build prior to this because we are fiscally responsible. And that's because of our staff, our leadership. John and Matt. That we are continuing to be cautious, but move forward with these projects. The sidewalks on North Vernonia, the intersection on First Street, the drawing, or at least getting that done. We're holding up the rest of it, but we're moving forward with that, the design. There's a lot of different projects on our list. If you want to, you can go to our website and look at them. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about the restructure a little bit later, kind of on future stuff later in my report. So tonight, because we're not going to do them today. So anybody else want to talk on the council goals? Councilors, you're all in the loop. Projects?
Not at this point.
Okay. All right, so let's move on. Let's review League of Oregon Cities list of legislative priorities. John Walsh.
All right, you can see it, you can do it. Yeah. So for those of you who've been on the council for a while, this shouldn't look too unfamiliar. It's something they do every legislative session. Is they ask cities to reach out and establish a top 4 priorities. And this is a process that the council's authorized my participation in over the past years. Last year, I took a year off. I was on the community development and the economic development committees, but there's 7 committees. And they come up with, literally this year, it's from A to Z. So you've got the full gambit of the alphabet of different legislative priorities for the League of Oregon Cities to focus their attention on. And in the past, I've talked about kind of the, what benefits St. Helens specifically. We have priority things, obviously, with infrastructure, financing, and the things of that like. Some taxation issues, perhaps, and just the general what's good for all governments across Oregon. And things like property tax reform and right-of-way franchise fee authority have been pretty consistently on the list. Mental health services and how that intersects with public safety is something that we set as a priority, and it made the top list last go around. And then a relatively newer one is the tort liability reform for public agencies. And I should caveat that this isn't due until August 7th, so you have plenty of time if you haven't already had a chance to kind of tick through these and take a look. But, it wasn't my intention to go through A to Z at this time today. I just wanted to introduce it, kind of talked about what's been priorities in the past and what, how this document's used. So.
Sure.
John, there's been a bunch of talk via the riots. Will that amount of noise change any of these or add to this list?
Well, clearly some of the newer ones are the COVID economic recovery investments and supporting small businesses, getting people back to work, that types of things. But traditionally, it's been more of a longer look at more systemic issues, not just incidents. If that makes sense. So.
Well, I'm now worried about the mental health component as connected with the police departments. Mental health, as you're well aware, has been almost totally avoided in the state's worries of what it should do. And now we're trying to let the police finances take care of that, which doesn't look like a red hot idea at all. It also gives the state an opportunity to cut back on finances. I just wondered if that was coming into play on this.
Well, that is one of the priorities. That's the one that the city identified last cycle, and it's on again for this cycle in a little different format, but it's still essentially that same systemic issue with mental health services, lack of funding, across the gamut, all the stuff you hear about.
Okay.
And we definitely have a mental health crisis worldwide, so. And the United States is rampant, so. Any other questions for John?
Well, just maybe a process as far as how you want to get to the top 4. So.
Why doesn't everybody just review it? When do you have to have this back by, John?
It's by August, so.
Okay, review it.
Plenty of time.
Yeah, I'm thinking the July 15th meeting or whatever, whatever date that is.
Yep.
We go ahead and give you the floor, okay?
No, I'd be happy to provide a staff recommendation as well. So.
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay.
All right, set activities for Public Works Director recruitment process. Kathy.
Yes, we have still 15 applications that we still need to move forward on as far as what you want to do. So in the packet, I put a list of questions that I need answers from so we can move forward with it. So the first question is, out of the 15, how many do you want to interview? Do you have a set amount you want to interview?
I have 7.
Is it possible to screen them via Zoom and then invite a limited amount to interview in person?
That's question 2.
Yes.
Well, because there were people that may or may not look good on paper, but might be awesome in person, and vice versa. They might look really good on paper, and they might not be so awesome in person.
Ginny, did you already go through a screening?
I did.
And did you pick a certain amount? Are you talking about taking all 15 on Zoom?
No.
Okay, so
no, I had lined out, a third of them.
Yes.
About a third of them, I said, I don't even want to look at these. And then there was about 2/3. It's like, I might want to Zoom them. Because if we're going to make a change at all, I want it to be, I don't want to make a change just willy-nilly. I want to get the best person possible.
I haven't talked to the mayor yet about his screening, and I'm sure he'll reveal that. But I was down to, I believe, 6 candidates that I thought were extremely strong, and I think Keith was around 7 or 8, somewhere in there. And it seems like Mr. Topaz was like around 6 or 7 as well. It seems like we've narrowed it down, that 3 of us out of the council have. So I don't know where you're at, Ginny, and I don't know where the mayor is.
I have 7.
7.
I had said that on the beginning. Yes, I have 7 of them.
And I think once that we get to a workable, and we agree on a workable standard of how many we have, I think that your idea of Zooming them, getting them all on a Zoom and asking them questions and seeing how they respond would be very appropriate. And I kind of feel that filing it down to 3, and that could possibly be a Zoom interview as well as a personal interview. But I like the idea of
let's go ahead,
especially with one of the candidates being on our staff now. I'm skeptical of lawsuits and that kind of thing going through our process. So I think that the questions that we ask need to be previewed by all, and that way it gives a fair appraisal across the board, and no one can say that, hey, you paid favoritism because you have a staff member who knew the questions. And so I'm skeptical of that. So I would like to see to overcome that, I'd like to see those questions go out and have the candidates be oral in their presentations, not read something in terms of their interview, but just basically orally respond to the questions but know what those questions are going to be. And I think that will be all above the board and more transparent that way as we go through this interview process. I hope I'm clear on that.
I'm not worried about a lawsuit. We're going to ask the same questions to the same people. I don't want to give a premeditated response. I want to know.
Well, here's the deal.
Kind of,
Here's the
well,
deal. If our staff
talk.
member knows those.
I let you talk. Please let me talk.
Go ahead. Okay.
Okay. Let's go ahead and do 8 via Zoom. Narrow it down to 4, and let's bring them in. That's everybody's got 7. Well, they're not all going to be the same, so let's do the 8. Do via Zoom meeting with staff, and just like we're doing now, staff and the council versus the individual. They Zoom in at this time. We're waiting for them. They come in. I
think that's a good idea.
Lawsuit issue there.
Yeah, and well, because so many of them were from far away that I wouldn't want to bring people in from out of the state unnecessarily unless they really had a viable chance of that we're even interested in them. I don't want to spend that money flying people in if they're not even a real candidate.
I've got 2 comments. One on the questions. I think we ought to run it by legal to make sure we're not getting into any labor law problems.
Yeah.
2, I think the staff can be introduced to the candidates, but I don't think the staff should be involved in any of the interviews. Because remember, this person will be over a great deal of the staff.
Well, I'd like John Walsh and Matt Brown to be involved. There's no way.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, the decision, if I could chime in here, the decision lies with the council on the hiring authority. And in the past, we've done, it always has, the introduction to the department heads or a community panel and other things we've done for other people is just more of a test of fit. And it's an advisory to the council's decision. So,
well, John, there's another thing that an interview does. The interviewee is looking at us, and that's where we'll say an introduction to the staff, but not an interview. He gets to review who he might be in charge of. So that's the 2-way street there. The interview for the job is strictly the council.
I agree.
Does Kathy have a list from everyone?
Yeah, yes, all but Rick, I think.
I can give it to you over right now.
I'll just get it from you tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll just tell you later. So no, yep.
We have given lists. The question is, we may want to put a rating on our list and see if they match. And if they all match, and I have a feeling that a great deal of them are going to match, I don't think there's going to be very many outliers.
You're probably right, Councilor Topaz.
No, but I think if we all submit questions to John, could John screen the questions? Because I think some of them are going to be similar. And then he has the experience to know you can't ask an interview this question and these are the same question, and he can come up with a list that matches.
Yeah,
there's 4 questions I really want to ask and 3 questions Rick really wants to ask, and 6 questions for this person. If we give them all to John, he can wordsmith them and make sure that we have all the topics covered so we have a final list.
Sure, and I'd like, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to have our attorney present and also Kathy, because Kathy's very good at keeping us on track on stuff like that too, our city recorder. So I think she's definitely.
We do have draft interview questions. They can certainly be looked at and updated. And I will caution that yes, interviewing is a dangerous place. So if you ask wrong questions, that's not a good. I'm going to be real careful. So.
It is. Mayor, the reason I brought up a lawsuit is because I went through one and in Portland Public Schools, and I was part of that lawsuit, and because I was on the interview board, and that's not a fun place to be, and it could have been avoided very, very easily by being more transparent, and that's just my point. Okay, so as long as we have legal advice there, I'm happy with that.
Sounds like, so definitely, I think correct me if I'm wrong, I know we make the decision, but I would, in the interview process would be the council, Kathy, John Walsh, and Matt Brown. We have the decision, but they would be part of the interview process as well. I think that's vitally important.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Great.
All right.
So
I'll get you my list when I'm signing stuff tomorrow, Kathy.
Okay. One other question that I had was what about travel expenses when we get to the point where we're actually asking people to come in, if we have any that are coming from far away, or do we want to pay for everybody's travel, those 4 people?
That's a good question.
I'm just, because I know it's going to probably come up when I'm calling or talking to these people.
What is standard, John?
Could we put a set amount on it?
Do we have to make that decision now because there might not be anyone involved? Do you need to communicate that at this point, Kathy?
Yes, I need to know now because I'm going to be contacting these people. So if they ask me, I don't want to have to wait till the next council meeting to get a decision on it.
Okay.
Can we put a set amount on it?
You can do in-state, you can do mileage, you can do, there's just really all over the board what communities do to try to attract their talent. So.
The airline business, I don't know what the airline fares are now with this virus around. That gets to be a problem as far as the set amount. It may be, you can tell the people we're going to bring in the top 3 candidates. And, you limit it that way.
At a minimum, they usually do a hotel and vehicle mileage.
Okay.
We can also have it to our discretion of how many that we're going to bring in, but we can say that we're going to bring in the finalists, and we don't need to say 3, 4, or 5 or whatever, because that pigeonholes us into doing that at this time.
Right.
So I just agree that if you use the word finalists, then I think that helps us in flexibility in terms of who we're going to bring in and where from. So if we're limited to 1 finalist who happens to live in Atlanta, Georgia, 3 finalists, one in Atlanta, Georgia, and 2 in Oregon, then that gives us flexibility to pay for 1 without committing to say we're going to pay for 5. So yeah, I kind of like that idea of maintaining some flexibility.
Correct.
Does that work, Kathy?
Yeah.
Travel usually considers meals and hotel. I don't think you have to spell out the meals and hotel. I think that's just under travel.
So if we have somebody that's coming from Florida and one that's coming from Georgia, are we going to pay for their expenses?
Oh,
that's the flexibility that I think if you call them finalists, then yes, we probably will. But we might have to make that decision that the one from Florida might not make it. I don't know. I hate committing to certain aspects and happen to be pigeonholed into that. And I think with wordsmithing, we can pretty much do what we want when we get to that point. I'm not certain.
Kathy, one of the things, if you're coming from Florida or Georgia, you're flying through Atlanta anyway, so the difference in cost of those 2 trips is not very much different.
So here's a history lesson for people that are listening in and wondering why we're trying to not spend a buck to get good talent, is that years ago, Councilor Locke and Councilor Morton were counselors on the council. We were hiring a public works director. The city was, and a guy flew in did the interview, and basically just said, hey, thanks for paying my airfare. I'm going to my daughter's wedding in Washington now. And wasn't even really here to get hired, used it to go to his daughter's wedding. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I believe it was for their city manager, but I'm not certain.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So if why we're sitting here, we're not trying to be cheap about the process. We're just trying to.
Rick, anybody do that, they're automatically disqualified.
Yeah.
It's a great way of cleaning house.
Rick, what did you just say we'll pay $1,500?
No, that you're going to get yourself in trouble because that discriminates against distance.
How about it saying something like this? Anybody that travels more than 50 miles may be accommodated. Is that fair?
No.
No?
The man or the woman who is going to hold this position is going to be handling millions of dollars. When you get that cheap, you're going to lose good talent. Right now, that's a black mark against St. Helens.
What I'm saying is accommodated. So, like, if we get somebody who wants to come in from Florida versus somebody from Portland, they can drive here in an hour, do their interview, and drive back. And they were literally in downtown Portland, which is 45-minute drive. Versus Florida, we're saying we're going to accommodate you. We'd like to fly you out, put you in the Best Western, and do your interview process on this day. And give you a round trip, give you a flight back.
Would the council be willing to allow John and the mayor to decide when this point actually comes up with each individual?
Yes, I like that.
Okay. That would be great because then I don't have to take it back to the council
Exactly.
for a decision. Okay, that's great. The other question I had was, what about a day that you want to do the interviews? Do you want to set a date now, or do you want us to talk about it?
How about July 7th, 8th for the Zoom meeting part of it? The 8th.
Okay.
So a question here, I mean, since they're Zoom meetings, they don't necessarily have to be on the same date.
Yeah, that's.
I guess we could accommodate, if somebody couldn't be, we could accommodate a few people for another date.
Like do 4 and 4?
Well, do as many as we could maybe on one day, but if somebody can't, don't
Disqualify them if they
don't
can't.
disqualify them just because they couldn't make a date. Yeah.
Okay.
Certainly to do 8 in one day is going to be exhausting. You start to lose your concentration on who's who after a while. I think interviewing 4 or 5 is a maximum in one day.
What about the 7th and 8th? We do it 4 and 4.
One, you're going to have to worry about time zones.
No, because we're all doing them here.
Yep.
And,
I mean, they'll be doing it.
End, they've got a time zone problem at their end.
Right. I know what you mean.
So if we did 1 o'clock, if they're on the East Coast, it's going to be 4 o'clock. It'd still be okay. If we did 1 to 5 o'clock, that gives us an hour for each. 4 candidates one day and 4 candidates the next day.
Okay. And you want them in the afternoon?
Yeah, I think so. Don't you guys?
So a newer format that you may want to consider is kind of have them every half hour, like a 20-minute interview, really brief and quick, kind of a combing.
Yeah, this is like a screening process, not an interview. The finalists will get the full meal deal.
That way you don't get so exhausted of 6 or 8 hours of interviews and the breaks. And it is really
good point, John. I like that.
So I could schedule them because between each interview, you're going to want to do some assessment.
Yeah.
So I can schedule them 45 minutes apart, but if you're only doing 30-minute interview, that's fine.
I'd say a 20-minute interview.
That's a lot, not a long time to get a lot of information out.
We're too chatty. I'm telling you guys, we are way too chatty.
Okay, I got everything that I need.
Okay.
Thank you.
So are we looking at those dates? Does that work for everybody? Like the 7th and 8th of July?
Probably.
Maybe 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, whatever.
Yeah, 7th and 8th looks good right now.
Bless you.
We're not going to have another meeting till then.
I know, but I can work out my schedule with Kathy.
Okay. Everybody's willing to be flexible around this, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna work it out with Kathy. She'll let me know.
Okay. The rest of you guys are retired, right?
What?
I said the rest of the guys are retired, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Wait till you retire and see how your schedule looks.
Hey, I got a meeting at the DMV. It's like 2 months out. It's crazy, but it's on that 7th, but it's at 11 in the morning. So I should be okay.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to do discuss recommendations regarding OLCC licensing and support for local businesses. Tina.
Tina, you may need to unmute yourself.
Tina, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Barely.
Okay, can you hear me better?
A little bit. I can hear you pretty good.
Okay. What we had wanted to talk about today is some information concerning 13 Nights on the River. And we are planning on moving forward for July, August, and then adding September to cover the June dates that we are, passing by. And because we're having to have 0 permits for from the OLCC for any events, they're not issuing any permits, only to merchants or people that are applying for a liquor license for brick and mortar. We want to go ahead and just let people bring in their own beverages, whether it's alcoholic beverages or whether it's pops and sodas and waters and whatnot. We also have to limit people to 250 people. So what we want to do is to just really confine the area of where the concert is actually played, and the vendor area would be open to any person in the public. So we would just control the entrance. We would have 2 alcohol monitors. We have to clean the bathrooms every hour, and maintain the security at the gate with wristbands, ask if there's a designated driver, etc. A lot of people probably walk, but still, that would be on us to just make sure that people are being safe. And I think most people don't come to 13 Nights to drink necessarily. They come for the music. So
yep.
I don't think it's the same as, it's not like tailgating really, because that's a different scenario where people end up, kind of overindulging a lot. But that doesn't mean they don't have designated drivers.
Sure, and you can still get a drunken public charge if you got too intoxicated. That still applies.
Yeah, but we try to eliminate that before that ever happens.
Yes, yeah.
So we would need your okay or permission to go ahead and do that. And they could buy season passes for $60, which is $5 for, every event, or $7 for an individual concert, or family passes, and that reduce it down to $60 basically for 13 concerts.
Yeah, I know there's a little mixed emotions out there in the community about this, and it was the only way we could actually go about having concerts was to charge, because it has to be at least make its money back. and this is what Tina came up with, which is at least something for the community. Yeah, we'd love to have free concerts and just have all the vendors and serve alcohol and just the way things were. But COVID-19 has happened, and this is one way of having something for our area to do.
And out of the 139 original comments that we got when we suggested possibly doing this, only 2 people were opposed to it, just so you know.
You ordered it.
Since then, there's been like 4 other people that, you know, are not for it, out of a lot.
Like I said, we know these are free concerts. This is the day of COVID right now, and those bands cost money to bring them here to St. Helens because they're good bands.
Yeah. So
I
we'll
have
see,
a comment.
you know, so with your permission, we would move forward with that
No,
agenda.
no. Let's come back. We've had a major problem in the community called COVIDs. First thing we ought to do is release all vendors, return all their money, and start over again. Some of these people, if they've paid a refund, that's money out of their pocket that they need to eat, and since there's nothing moving, they can't be in business.
No one has asked for their money
right
back.
now.
No one
Okay.
has asked for their money back or wants their money back. All of the vendors, absolutely. In fact, 4 signed up last
That's
week.
not true. I've talked to 2, and that's not
Who?
true.
Who are
They may
they?
not talk to you, but we have
Okay,
a
so
governor that's told us how to open the state up, and they've changed their mind because the way the virus is moving. So let's be a little more open up and not allow just a business to go forward. The city is becoming major business, competing with some of our other little businesses that are just hanging on. So we gotta rethink this one. This is not the same year as last year.
Okay, when I sent out the email to all of the vendors 3 weeks ago, none of them said they didn't want to be there. So they can certainly opt out. I've never told them that we're not giving them their money back. In fact, quite the opposite. And this past week, 4 more people signed up to be there. So I'm not sure who you're talking to or if they're even a vendor. But clearly they need to make their request known, or we can't act on things that we don't know about.
Let us be very careful about this pandemic, and that includes businesses. I'm just putting it out because I've gotten a lot of bad press. Leave it there.
So it's 250, which the pandemic does allow, and it
Correct.
would be 6-foot spacing between your guest,
Yes.
you and your guest between other people.
Yes, and face masks.
So.
And we could limit it even more if you want to, but I'm trying to follow the rules from the state.
How many vendors are going to be there, and how much money can a vendor make on 250 people?
Well, the vendors absolutely can sell to anybody, which maybe you missed, not just the people in the crowd. So people that just want to go and eat, which many of them actually made a comment in that direction, would be able to get to 100% of all the vendors is open to the public. The only thing that is closed to the public is where there is the gathering space, and we have to limit that so that we are in compliance with the law. The vendors that are there also have to use safe distancing, and they will, I'm sure, be setting up, that's one of the criteria for them even to be there, is that they have to put X's on the sidewalk with tape or whatever they are going to do, just like they do when they're in the food courts up by Safeway, for instance.
How many square feet do we have, and will the whole area between the fence going into the park and the front of the city hall, how many square feet can we get 250 people with the legal spacing? And remember, you've got to subtract the space of the vendors out of there. You may not be able to get 200 public in there to be financially viable.
Well, it's up on the top deck. It's not the street. The street is just open to the general public. Just, you know, it'll be blocked because we don't want people to get run over, but that is not where the paid guests will be getting together. They'll be down in the concert area as well as up on the deck on the right-hand side. So they can be anywhere in the concert area as long as they are 6 feet away from another group that does not, you know, live in the same household.
That's 36 square feet per person times 250. Do you have enough space in that area to put that many people? That's
Steve,
one of the questions.
Steve, I think you're misunderstanding that you can show up as a group and be less than 6 feet apart in that group.
Like most people come with 2 to 4 people.
Like if you and I were to go down, me, you, I, John Walsh, and Matt Brown were to go down to Plymouth Pub right now, we could sit at a table and be literally 3 feet apart from each other. And then 6 feet apart from us is a whole other group of 4. And then
Give your numbers first.
I'm not trying to complicate it, Steve, and you really are complicating this. The state has certain guidelines. There's a rule on this with 250 people that the state has mandated. We declared a state of emergency, but we have no restrictions. We're just following the state guidelines.
Here, I have one question regarding the concerts for Tina. Is that because this is uncharted ground, a closed 13 nights or closed concert, there is the leeway to make changes in the following week, correct?
You can make changes on the fly.
Right. So like if you try it and you look and it's not working, you can always limit or change traffic or say this just isn't working, too many people are going to get sick.
Yes, please let the music groups know that there may be possible cancellation with a small.
Well, they are all really aware of what's going on.
Because I feel for the groups. I know some people that do gig things and restaurant things, and they didn't get any unemployment. Bands didn't get any employment. They didn't get any COVID relief. They didn't get anything. Everything shut down, and they're like, they'll have no income for a year.
Well,
I'm sensitive to help them a little bit, but I don't want to jeopardize our citizens.
But I don't want the bands to be unsafe. And
no.
You know, a lot. So if we can't do this according to the state regulations, we should not do it at all. But we are planning to be in compliance. So, you know, we're very watchful of that. We don't want anyone to get sick. And in fact, even the musicians, I just sent something out to them and said, you know, that you will not be able to do CD sales on site unless the person that is approaching, you know, has a mask on and it's approved by you. And a lot of the musicians actually are wearing masks. You know, the bass players and people that don't have to sing or have a wind instrument, they have been wearing masks in the open air concerts that I've been to recently, and staying 6 feet apart. And we do have the space for them to be able to do that because keep in mind, they also are not living in the same household.
Yes.
So they're being safe themselves.
What are you charging for the tickets?
If you buy a season pass for every concert, it's $5 a ticket.
Okay.
It works out to $5 a ticket. It's $7 for a single pass.
$7 for a single pass.
Yeah.
And you're going to be able to cover costs with that?
Well, I mean, we do have vendor sales and we do have sponsors. And, you know, we happily announced that Wanna Credit Union sponsored the series, and Jane Garcia Group is returning, as well as Cascadia Home Loans, and some new ones like Solagen, Mark Lang, attorney. We have people that are sponsoring, but we don't have as many as we normally do, for sure, because, you know, some of them are pulling in their sponsorship dollars because they have other priorities, and I understand that.
All right, so the question of is the OLCC licensing and opening up the down area for open carry would be what you're asking, right?
Within the fenced area right now, but not outside of the fenced area.
Other counselors?
Well, I agree with what Tina has brought to us. She's done her due diligence and research in the area, and as long as we're staying within the state guidelines, I feel that that's a good approach.
And you know, I am sorry if there's people that have told Councilor Topaz that they want their money back and haven't had the courage to just send me an email, because they certainly can get it back.
Keith, you've done this quite a few times. What's your feeling?
That's our public works guys getting obnoxious over there. Sorry about that.
Hey, I don't think, you know, a few events for the public's a good thing. You know, nobody's forcing anybody to come down here, but have an event where they can come down and stay safe, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I think with the idea of things go wrong or something doesn't go according to plan, that John and Rick have the ability to say, we can't go forward, because the COVID situation is constantly changing from week to week.
If it spiked out of control and all of a sudden, you know, the governor said, hey, we need to go back.
Yeah,
down, then of course.
that authority is with you and John, that you don't have to call a meeting to call the concerts.
I mean, that would be a public safety issue. That would be a no-brainer for us.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, we would not want that.
Yep.
The other thing that I wanted to bring to forward is the Luminite drive-through concept we've been discussing with that group. And in August, September, and October, we would like to move it to a safer location on the property that is out from Dockside by the water, and not interfere with the walking path that currently goes to the end of the fence and back, but to also use that as our potential Halloween egress and the Luminites egress, and move it to an area where people would be able to drive through in cars for that festival of lights. If anybody has any,
I personally, I don't think that I don't mean to be a buzzkill, but I think that the lights has a tendency to be an attractive nuisance. I think when the governor talks about fairs and carnivals and giant events that invite people outside of the area to come, I think that's where we get into trouble, is then all of a sudden you have people coming from out of state. You know, people are with everything closed for so long. The people that don't care, or young people, or people that don't know any better or whatever, are going to travel from great distance to come to this. And I just think that that goes against the spirit of the governor's order. It might not be $250 at a time, but it's an attractive nuisance. It's inviting people to travel here, and I'm just not sure if that is allowed.
Well, is it, Tina, is it your feeling that it's a drive-through and they will be in their cars, their automobiles?
Yes.
I'm not opposed to the idea. I just would like to see where we're at in like a couple months. And I know it's hard to work with somebody, a big production like that. But I know for me personally, Governor said September was a date that she was looking at for, and I'd be kind of curious to see how college football plays out and all that. So I know that's like a long ways out and you need answers now, but I'm kind of like, I like the drive-through concept though. I mean, the graduations, a lot of them have been drive-through. St. Helens, a number of them have been drive-through graduations, so not a bad idea.
I have to agree though with Jenny. The situation you'll have after they get through, you'll have a lot of people who will be in town. The fact that we're going up, we're one of the, 26 states that's increasing now. It's totally unpredictable. I'd kill this thing quick. A lot of the other venues are not doing anything, and they're more practiced at large groups. The theater world, until next year. I think any major operation like this is just asking for super trouble.
Well, and with the spike, I'm not going to get political. I'm just going to state a fact is that it doesn't surprise me with the protests going on that we have spikes. Now, I'm not getting political. I'm not affiliated, point blank. But it does not surprise me.
Yeah, it's so many people are moving from area to area, and they put the pause on Multnomah County opening, and who knows what the next week will bring. That by in 2 weeks we may be in a whole different situation. And I really hesitant to say yes on something for September when I'm not certain about next week.
I like the idea, and I'm just going to state that I like it because at least it's somewhat controlled. And again, I'm not trying to get political, but when you have protests that are illegal, when they're happening daily, and there's tens of thousands of people, and you're trying to follow the rules and just trying to make sense of, I would like to research it a little bit more, and I would like people to think about it before. I know Tina needs an answer, but I can't give you an answer right now, Tina, personally me, but I like that we are taking an approach that is trying to be cautious, but also help out our area as well, because our small businesses are struggling. And I don't think any one of us can all say we don't want them here. But you talk to small businesses, and if they could get them here safely and serve them safely, they want that dollar. I don't own a retail store. I own a landscape business. If I owned a retail store, I would probably want some shoppers here.
Well, I mean,
nobody pays their bills. None of us pay their bills. They do.
That's the, that's the difficult part, is telling local businesses that we are not attempting to bring customers for them when they want customers.
Well, this is like one of those deals where, like, the planning commission, like sometimes where we don't see eye to eye, we serve all the citizens, and we have to really try to think. Sometimes not just be self-serving and think, oh, I want to be safe. We're not trying to be safe, but just safe in my decision making, so it's not controversial.
I mean, my question would be this: is like, are we telling our merchant community and our community in general that people from out of town are not welcome here, period? Stay away, do not come here, and we're okay with not having you take their money. We're acting on their behalf.
Yes. We're not playing a normal day. We have a problem out there, and it's getting worse. They're now predicting 200,000 dead people in the country. Don't want to be part of it.
Well, so what we're talking about is two different apples and oranges, because a protest that has no social distancing versus an event that is designed around social distancing and following protocol is, your cases are, those are apples and oranges. That's all I can say. And I'm not trying to get political here, but that's really the difference right there, in my opinion. And you can look at me. Yes, I'm looking at you too, Councilor Topaz, and I that's honestly what I believe. And I bet you doctors, you're in the medical field, I bet doctors would agree with me that a event that is based around protection of COVID versus a protest that has no rhyme to reason with no social distancing, no wonder we see an increase in COVID-19. And testing is better and more frequent now. I heard that from an OSHU doctor, not from the governor, not from anybody else, an OSHU doctor. She's not surprised by it. Again, I'm not trying to get political. Tina, I would love to, I know it's a month out. I'm not opposed to it, and I don't know what the rest of the council, how they feel. And I know we're getting close to our 3 o'clock break, though. I know that.
What's the drop dead date?
Please take a break right now.
Rick, if you've watched Japan, South Korea, and even China, where they haven't had the riots, and it's going up because a few things we don't know about it. As a safety officer, I'm going to go to the high side on safe.
Yeah, I'm
not worried about the rioters. I'm just worried about too many people, and it only takes one out of 100 to pass it on. That's, it's scary out there, kids.
Well, there's 5 counselors for a reason. I'd like to hear from the other 2.
Yes. Council President Morton.
Oh yeah, I've already weighed in, Jenny. You probably didn't hear me, but I said I thought Tina has done her homework. Did you recall me saying that by chance?
I did.
I heard parts of it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. I think she's done her homework. I think things would be safe, and I asked her the question if people would remain in their automobiles. To me, that is key. To me, the people running around down there at that time could be a travesty. So if they remain in their automobiles, drive through, and find places to park if they care to, but remain in your automobiles. I think that's the most important. I think that's the most important issue. I don't have a problem with it. I think that dispersing, and I think that it will help our community. It also gives our citizens an activity that they can partake in if they care to. This isn't all just for tourists. That is not, we kind of painted that picture that this is going to work, that it's going to be all tourists that will be coming to see this thing. So we have it for our citizens as well. So I think it's okay. It sounds safe to me. I was very, very impressed with graduation this year with the high school kids of the class of 2020. I think that was effective, and that just kind of like, we didn't know how that would come out, and it came out beautiful. People maintained any distances, and parents were up close. They were there in the automobiles with their graduates. I don't see a problem with this if it's well understood and people understand that they need to stay in their automobiles throughout the activity. So I need to say that again?
No, I'm good. Keith,
thank you.
Keith talked about it. Do you have an opinion, Keith?
Yeah. I hesitantly agree with Rick and Doug on this one, just because, but there's always going to be the caveat that things could get canceled, if things really get bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can't pretend to predict the future. But we can try to work within the confines of regulations and restrictions and do our part in, keeping it as safe as we can. But the point of fact is, you know, the restaurants are open. The merchants are open. The grocery stores are open. And people are choosing to protect themselves or not. And I wish they would protect themselves more. But, you know, that's my opinion. And the question does fall back on, are we going to support our commerce or not, really? I mean, because they will definitely want to know what's going on and why, and how come we can't with the restrictions that we're following rules, just like they've been having to follow the rules. And, you know, a lot of them are struggling. So we need to, I want a message, you know, one way or the other, I want messaging to be correct.
How many people or cars have to go through this operation, and for how many weekends to break even?
I don't have that. I don't have that number. I don't have that number right now, because I want to go back to them and say, you know, yes, we're allowed to do it if it's a drive-through or not, because then we can set our pricing accordingly.
Hey, has anybody else heard that Garth Brooks is actually going to be playing drive-through movie theaters?
He is. That was announced earlier today.
So, I mean, this is the world that we're living in, and this is what we're doing is not going to be.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing drive-through theaters.
It's not like we're alone in this, you know. I mean, so I just want to put that out there to the council that we're not alone. There's a lot of people that are probably doing this around the United States, this type of forward thinking and COVID-19 and how do we move forward.
This is not a Garth Brooks operation. If we need to raise $50,000 at $5 a car, that's 5,000 people or 5,000 cars that got to go through there. And now, if they're in the cars, they're not going to be in the different restaurants or different stores to go shopping.
Have you been to a Garth Brooks concert?
No, I'm not that type of guy.
He's as popular or even more popular than the Grateful Dead, or let's see, somebody.
Oh, I know who he is. I've been in similar operations with that many people. I'm old enough to go to drive-in movies there too, Rick.
So if I'm going to a drive-in and I'm going to a Garth Brooks concert, I'm going to fill my minivan completely up, and we're going to the concert. That's exactly what's going to happen.
I mean, if the majority of the council supports this idea, as long as it's COVID compliant, I will stand by the decision of the council. Because we are a team.
Yes, and I would.
Right, we have no option on that.
Well, no, but I mean, if it sounds like Keith is fine if it's COVID compliant, you're fine. The mayor is fine. I'm not going to be, you know, a thorn in somebody's side making a big stink. I'm going to stand with the team.
No, we just want to hear from you.
Yeah, I mean, I weighed in and have my say.
Okay, well, it sounds like you have the opportunity to move forward, and these guys need to understand that it sounds like Councilor Topaz is not completely for it, but the majority of the council is, and that they understand that the plug could be pulled, there could be a halt in operation. And it'll only be because of COVID. It's not going to be because of the city. So that would be the one liability issue that they're on the hook for, because they're much a partner in this, Steve, as we are. They are on the hook for this as much as we are.
Yeah, it's
So
very
just so you
costly.
know. Yes.
It's
just so you know.
expensive.
Yes. Yep.
So Tina, one question that we had before is, you know, how many outsiders are they going to bring in here for setup and to run the thing?
Say that one more time.
How many outsiders or people from across the nation or across the continent are going to be coming in here to help run this thing or set it up and whatnot?
12.
So then, is there a procedure to make sure everything's safe and everything with all that?
Well, and the people that are setting it up are in the United States right now.
Okay.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to let you know that with individual distancing, just so you know that I put the math in place, is the concert area at the Wanna Credit Union stage is big enough for 805 people standing 6 feet apart.
Okay.
So we're going to be well under that limit.
Yes, and so just in case, just for sure, probably around September, we know that this could definitely, all this discussion could be for nothing, but at least we're being cautious between what the standards are right now and between now and then. So it sounds like we're very cautious, and other people are doing, we're not alone, are doing these type of ideas with graduations to drive-in concerts. So,
well, I heard the Pendleton Roundup was actually going to take place now, so that's kind of newsworthy.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so we're going to take. It sounds like you have a census to move forward on that, and just bring us the presentation, more information on our third week of July meeting. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So, and it sounds like we're okay with the OLCC, the open container, correct, everybody? Just so I'm clear on it.
Right, we're okay, but because we don't meet again till the third week in July, if something goes awry, it's up to you and John to make the adjustment.
Yep, I just reiterate, because we're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we're going to do department reports, and if we need any other business, we're going to, unless we just want to go through it, unless we just want to do the department reports. Because we don't, Tina's already reported.
You also have an executive session at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Of this.
Let's take a 10-minute break. Yep. Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break.
For the 10-minute break, I'm going to go ahead and put everyone on mute. So if you need to get a hold of me or John or Kathy or Lisa, you can call or text us, or you can chat with me on Zoom if you would like.
Okay. See you in 10.
Yep.
2 times or
Okay, looks like we're still waiting on Council President Morton. Council President Morton. You unmuted, you guys? Everybody say hello?
Yep.
Hello.
Hello.
Here.
Howdy doody.
Okay. All right. So, welcome back, and now we will go into department reports. Let's start with Chief Greenway or Joe. I'm not sure if Chief's on here. Is it Lieutenant Hogue?
Yeah, Chief is not here.
Okay.
I have nothing to report.
Okay.
Thanks for coming, Joe.
Yes,
Betcha.
good job on policing and just you know, everything that's been going on. I just want to say we appreciate you guys and that you're doing a good job. So
Thank you.
yep. Okay, Public Works, Sue Nelson.
Turn on my microphone. Yeah, good afternoon. Thanks, Mayor. So first of all, I want to report that we are opening playground equipment today. It should be open now. Though that ruling changed from earlier in the month as far as actual playground equipment. We're also hoping to get a couple of the restrooms open by this weekend.
Good.
And we're waiting right now on the PPE that we have ordered for our staff.
So I understand there was an issue with the original order is why we're still waiting to open the restrooms. That the PPE wasn't sufficient, right?
That's correct. The first PPE that we had received was found not to be able to work in an environment where there was liquid. So
Yep.
cleaning the restrooms, that wouldn't work.
I just want the public, if they are listening, to know why.
Yeah, exactly. So so that was found not to be suitable. So we did find some that was designed specifically for this type of use, and we have that ordered. It's been arriving in a couple of different shipments today and tomorrow. So by tomorrow we should have what we need. We did verify that the disinfectant that we currently stock is on the approved list for being able to counteract the virus. So that was good news. And so we're working on getting, we're starting with 2 restrooms, the Columbia View restroom and the Gray Cliffs restroom will probably be the second restroom. They are also working on redoing the floors in the McCormick Park restrooms, and they should be doing that, installing that material tomorrow, and that does have to cure for several days. So that is one of the reasons, besides they don't have enough of the PPE yet, but that's one of the reasons that the McCormick Park restrooms will not open until hopefully we can get that next week. We're also working with Gretchen over at the library and Shauna with the rec center on setting up a storybook trail. So this is something that Gretchen and Shauna came up with, a really great idea where they take a children's book, take the pages. Our public works guys are making little stands for those to go on, and they will post those around one of the walking trails through McCormick Park, so you can go through with your family, the kids, and read a great book and enjoy the outdoor activities. So they're going to be building that next week and hopefully have it installed sometime in the next few weeks. Gretchen is still working out some of the details on the actual book pages. And also Jenny mentioned in her report on the Columbia Boulevard sidewalk, the Safe Routes to School grant project. We're still moving forward on getting the design work and everything ready for that. We expect that to go out to bid in the later this year and be built next spring. And that's a primarily grant-funded project, so we're very excited to get that work going. It'll just dovetail into the Gable Road sidewalk that terminates down near the Columbia Boulevard Gable intersection and continue on up to the school at McBride and or the McBride School at Sykes and Columbia there. And we're also going to be doing some crosswalk improvements at the school crosswalk as part of that grant program. So that's an exciting project to get moving. We've got some private development going on still. We've got a couple of city projects. It's just been a busy, busy spring. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about any of our projects or any of the work going on around town.
Sue, I have some comments and probably questions, but
Yeah.
this has been my first year in all my time on the council that we have not hired in the parks summer help from high school kids or whatever. And you saw the outfall of that.
Yes, we definitely have.
In the first part of our meeting under opinions, there were two people who were very outspoken against that. I was lividly taken back. And I go, you know, I understand that we only have 2 parks individuals who are on staff to do all the mowing and all the maintenance of 160 acres of parks. 2. And then we have a supervisor who tries to work through those kinds of things, but that's it.
Yes,
why did we not hire some high school kids for inexpensive? We wouldn't have to pay retirement. We wouldn't have to pay all those things. Why did we not do that this year? And why do we have to put up with the wrath of our citizens, especially in the spring when the grass is growing like wildfire, that, you know, we can't keep up. And so the opinions that I think Pat Berkeley had is about having friends of and more volunteers come into our parks and help out is good, but that takes some time, that takes some doing, that takes some commitment out of our citizens. So I'm very disappointed that those decisions were made to not hire the summer help or spring help, however you want to say it, or whatever the timelines are. Very disappointed.
Well, I find that kind of, you were right here in the same exact meeting as each and every counselor when that decision was made in public.
That decision was not made when I was there.
So the public works, unless you were absent, and I apologize if you were. Okay? I'm not, what I'm going to say is that we asked Public Works to help out in the Parks Department because it would be great social distancing. COVID happened, the budget crunch, we put all hiring on hold across the board, and that was a council decision. And now we can start to look at those type of things. But to talk about like you're disappointed.
No, I figured the hiring was for permanent jobs, permanent positions, not the temporary kinds of things that we've done in the past.
So, and that being said, we had 2 applicants that responded to it. Sue, is that correct? And 1 backed out?
From what I recall, there were 2 that responded to our original advertisement for the early. We usually have an early starter that starts sometime in as early as late March, but usually in April to help start with the mowing. And yes, we were advised that hiring of any employee, temporary or permanent, was put on hold until there was more information available on the potential COVID. So that I agree with you that was a difficult decision to make, and it certainly impacted the maintenance capabilities that we have for, as you mentioned, for the many acres of parklands and other facilities that they maintain, because it's not just parks that they maintain, but they do a lot of work in the street right-of-way around city facilities, including our reservoirs and down here at City Hall, and they do quite a bit of work all over the city. And as you mentioned, there's only a total of 3 people there right now to take care of all of this. But I was just talking with John this morning, and he's given the green light that we can go ahead and move forward in getting some of our temporary workers for the summer. So I'm very, very excited to get that rolling, because that's going to make a big difference as to what we're able to keep up with as maintenance wise.
Okay, so now, Mayor, I've got to go back here. You're just saying, okay, that we weren't going to hire anyone, and now I'm understanding that we are. So I'm confused, and I thought that we were always talking about what the issue was filling the utility position at Public Works, doing permanent kinds of hiring. And I thought that was what we were talking about, not the hiring of kids in the summertime to help out with the parks. So just for that understanding. And yes, I was there.
So when COVID first started, if you recall, is that our Public Works people, not our parks, our Public Works, a lot of times ride 2 to 3 to a vehicle. And we had talked about this as far as social distancing, and I think they have. I've seen, I thought, quite a few Public Works guys doing some mowing and weed eating too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I could be wrong, but Doug, this is as much your department as it is mine, and you had it before me, and now we share it. So I have seen Public Works guys helping out where they can.
Exactly.
And I'm sorry I missed the comments at the beginning of this, but this is a very unusual year for grass. It's my line of work. I'll tell you right now, one of the wettest Junes ever. There's no reprieve. There usually is a reprieve by now. So yeah, I bet they are behind. I know firsthand. I'm sorry to our citizens that we have an unusually humid, wet spring/summer that we can't get caught up right now. But I can guarantee you it's not for lack of trying.
Yeah, I think just a lot of elements compound the COVID, parks being down a couple, no summer hires, no work crew. It's like all of the safety nets for groundskeeping were gone. And we're seeing the effects of that. So, it's, time to react. The grass won't stop growing until August. So it's not like they missed their opportunity to cut it.
And I think the Friends idea, Doug, is a great option to letting some of the community members who are retired or not retired that just want to do their part to serve our community. As long as there's no liability issue there, I'm totally okay with it.
Yeah, I think friends of groups, I think we should welcome community members to partner with their neighborhood park to take, semi-ownership of keeping an eye on it, because we can't watch it 24/7. And it's so important for vandalism to catch it early. I know that years ago, somebody was tearing apart one of the play structures. And by the time I reached our Public Works director at the time, he was already on site fixing it because a community member reported it. So, I mean, it's important that we all keep our eyes out to protect our community. But I think it's just, forewarned us, we know what we know now. We can do better. No reflection on anybody. It's COVID and just this kind of year.
And again, I apologize, Doug, for coming, I wasn't able to get on my computer. I was frustrated. I didn't get the public comment side. It sounds like you had 2 people comment on it. So again, I apologize for not being there for that.
No problem. So there just needs to be an understanding, and I think everyone needs to weigh in on why the weeds were growing in Veterans Park. And I think there are fixes. There are a lot of ways that we can, when we move forward, that we can get around that so that doesn't happen again.
I agree with you. Yep.
One last question, Sue. Do we know when those crosswalks will be in place over there, particularly the one by the high school? Driving traffic today said they would finish the driveway today, but I didn't know about the crosswalk.
Yeah, the crosswalk work there. So I just got an updated schedule from them. Let's see, they should finish most of the paving today, no, tomorrow. There will be some paving on Monday. Then they will start doing all of the striping and legends along the roadway because they'll need to put all the bike lane legends, installing the signage, and the crosswalk, the blinking light at the crosswalk, I believe goes in either at the end of next week or the following week.
Okay, I just like to kind of, and when I see workers, I know what they're doing, and when people ask me, I have the right answer, and I'm not making it up.
Yeah. So right, today and tomorrow they're concentrating on paving, and they did show some more paving, like finishing up driveways and things on Monday is what it showed.
Awesome.
Yeah.
When it's all painted up, that's going to be very
Oh
cool.
man, it's gonna look so nice out there. Yep. One more comment on the parks maintenance. The other piece of that puzzle that we usually have are the community service workers, which typically help immensely with the things like weed eating and pulling weeds and things like that. We have not had those for months.
Are they even working, Sue?
I don't know that, but I don't think so because they can't transport them and meet guidelines and things.
Yep.
So that's been another unfortunate situation with our helpers. But I don't know if John wants to weigh in, but we're going to move forward with trying to get our summer helpers on board as quickly as possible.
Super. I just don't want the 3 guys that we do have. I want them to know that that we still care about them and we're trying to support them. I think sometimes out there on their mower, they're like, did they even see this? So I just want to let our crews know and our park users know we see you and we're working on it and doing the best we can, that by the time the rain stops, we'll have the parks under control.
Yeah, and the summer helpers will come at a good time because they're going to get back into needing to clean restrooms again, which there's a big chunk of their day.
Just so everybody knows, those types of field grass can grow at least 5 inches, in 1 week's time. Field grass is very much different than your yard grass. It just grows like mad. So people need to understand that part of it too. So.
Yeah, you can't mow the field every other week, or you'd have grass to your knees.
Yes. Yeah.
So thank you, Sue.
Yeah, happy to answer any other questions.
Okay. Any other questions for Sue?
I probably could be appropriate time to kind of pile on her Sue's report there. Yes, we did do a spending freeze. Yes, we did do a hiring freeze back pre-COVID, just not knowing what the future held. We're looking at communities around us just cutting their budgets or anticipating huge cuts in their budgets. So we just wanted to take this wait and see posture, and there's consequences that come with that. And Sue and I have been talking about it. We had some applications that were submitted. We're going to explore those and try to get some more people queued up to get back to work and get the community looking nice again. So.
Okay. Thank you, John. All right, Margaret Jeffries, the library.
Hello.
Hello.
I just wanted to say that this is our second week of offering curbside service at the library for holds pickups. And last week was kind of a soft rollout. And so there are 2 days a week, Tuesday and Friday, during a specific window of time each day, where we open up the holds window on the porch. But in between that, people place holds and we confirm that we have the item available and it's out of quarantine. And then we create bundles. We're like a sandwich wrapping operation. We have some work tables with a lot of big roll of saran wrap, and we wear gloves and bundle up the books that people have requested. And actually we check them out to them at that time. And and put their slip in there, and then create these bundles, and we have them waiting for people who come by, and we call and make sure that, let them know that we have the items ready. And it's been working really well. We had all these hold requests suppressed while we were not offering the service. So now that we've released it, there's a lot of backlog to work off. But people seem to be pretty pleased. And there are a lot of questions about when we are actually going to open the library. And I just have to say, I don't know yet when that will be. We still have a lot of things kind of torn apart here in the library, with furniture where it isn't usually supposed to be. And there's still a little bit of work underway. But we're also trying to address the issue of, as I've mentioned before, traffic control and cleaning and that sort of thing. So the curbside service was just a big milestone, and I'm real pleased to see that going as well as it is. The other thing I have is in your packet. I have a request to expend up to $6,500 from the library's facility fund to install a commercial air purification system for the Columbia Center. The contractor would be Trotter Morton. They are the contractor that, under a new name that we've used for as long as we've had the building, I think, for our HVAC. And I have in the packet a little background on that. And this is basically a way to address a lot of things, a lot of odors and pollutants in the air, but also aerosolized virus.
Well, I think as many people that you have throughout there, I don't think it's a bad deal, even if COVID weren't, because you still have the flu and you still have the common cold. And this is one way of protecting people from that as well. It will be equipped to catch all the aerosols though, too.
Right, and I guess they have lamps that have to be changed, I believe, every 2 years. And so that would be something that would fall under our maintenance that we're currently having done. And there may be an added fee, obviously, for the lamps, but my understanding is that they are on a 2-year cycle. And we have a total of 8 intakes. I think 6 are for the furnaces, and 1 is for a group of 2 air conditioners, and then another one, a large one, for a huge bank of air conditioners.
I know that bigger commercial buildings are going to all have to start going to this, which is going to cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I should probably point out that the initial, we did install these types of this equipment in some city buildings here, and those funds were reimbursable by the CARES Act funding. There's no guarantee of reimbursement in the second phase, but the expense is potentially reimbursable.
Well, I'll be glad to give you my receipt.
Yeah.
Yes. Realize this equipment isn't only good for this particular flavor of virus. It will get a lot of other viruses plus bacteria. It will just make the whole place a lot more healthy. So it's, you know, anything that goes through the UV will kill it.
I like it. I'm glad that you're doing a good job, Margaret.
Well, is it a go ahead?
Yes.
Yeah. If someone wanted to have a conversation with you, Margaret, are you at the library most days?
Yes. I'm not here on Fridays. I had planned to take some leave in June, and obviously I can't travel now, so I'm taking Fridays off till the end of the fiscal year. But Monday through Thursday, I'm here usually from 9 to 5:30. Sometimes I have to be here earlier to meet a contractor, but you can call my direct line or come to the back door on the dock and knock. We always have package delivery, so
Okay, I had some questions that aren't city business. I just wanted to know if you were available, that's all.
Sure. And I have one more item. I just wanted to revisit an earlier request that I made. Early on, I asked the council for permission to install a sidewalk and do some door hardware and possibly some emergency lighting upgrades and data lines for the makerspace. And at the time, I only had pricing on the sidewalk, and I asked for a head nod, and I got one from the council to go ahead. Yesterday, Roger got the quote for the handicap door installations, the two doors that lead, well, one that leads out of the lobby and the other that goes into the makerspace. And he and I were both very stunned to see that the parts for those two doors were going to be just shy of $5,000.
Wow.
And so I made another call to another supplier, and I got a similar sort of estimate over the phone. So
yep.
I want very much for those doors to be handicap accessible. We needed the sidewalk anyway, but we really had in mind that someone in a wheelchair could go out the lobby door along the sidewalk and get into the makerspace on their own. And because I got a head nod and not an approval based on a specific price, I just wanted to run that past you again before we proceeded with that.
What is the total specific price?
It's it's like $46.90 something. It's just under $4,700, and it's for all the associated parts to make the doors handicap accessible.
And the sidewalk as well?
No, the sidewalk is $2,500, and it hasn't been done yet.
Right. Okay.
And that's something Roger and a team from Public Works would do. They did a similar sidewalk on the other side of the building a couple of years ago. So we just paced it off and approximated the cost based on what that one had been. But this again would come out of the same designated library facility fund that we have from the sale of the old building.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I think we have to. I think you can't, this day and age, to leave out such a big portion of our community and to not enable people is just ridiculous. Even if you consider moms with kids and their hands full, you just don't, the doors need to be accessible.
Yeah, a lot of people find them very useful. You're right. Even if you, and the other thing too is with COVID, it's nice to be able to just bump up against them and open the door.
Yeah, I'm using lots more of those touchless entries.
The cost, Margaret, if you even go industrially, for some reason, the minute you say handicap, there's a multiplier that gets everybody. And it's kind of unfair, but that's what the price on the street is.
Well, yeah, it's mechanical and it's built to last, so I can say that much about them. They're definitely built. You pay for what you get.
Yeah, but still, Rick, it's when you talk to the people who do a lot of that, they're overpriced, but that's what they do to meet the certifications they need. Other course that doesn't have. So,
well, I just wanted to revisit it because it came as such a surprise to Roger.
I bet it did.
Yeah. It's what it is.
All right. Anything
else?
All
right, that's all I have.
Okay. Matt.
I have a few things I wanted to mention that are on the agenda for tonight. On the approve and authorize for signature, there are 3 items that are related to some projects. 2 of them are extensions of agreements. One of them is for McKenzie Engineering. We are still going through the police station study. I believe they started a topography study through another agency, AKS Engineering, that has done other topography studies on the industrial park. So they're started that on Monday to look at the wetlands specifically in that area, as well as the 500 and 100-year floodplain, so we can make sure to have those correctly indicated on the map to make sure we place the building correctly. So we're still moving forward on the police station. So this is an extension. The original agreement only went through the end of June. Of course, we had COVID hit and meetings got pushed out and plans and everything like that. So we're just extending the contract there. There is a extension for an agreement with Shannon Metric for pro tem judicial services. This is our backup judge for municipal court, and it's just a yearly renewal. She comes in if there is ever a conflict of interest with Amy, and she needs to step aside. That last year it only happened one time because of a current attorney within the city of St. Helens. The other one is an agreement with Robert Cleland for pro tem prosecution services. Our current prosecutor, his wife is going to be having a child soon, and so he would like to have some time off to go obviously be with his family during that time. So we're bringing in a pro tem prosecutor that he is already familiar and has worked with in the past, and thinks he can definitely step up and do the job in the interim where he needs to fill in. There are 3 resolutions on the docket for tonight. Number 1892, which is a change of appropriations for this current fiscal year. This is basically just an update on the budget with all the kind of changes that have happened over the last year. And so it's just changing those appropriations. There's nothing too huge that I think I really don't need to get into unless there are any specific questions. Resolution 1891, which is a resolution authorization, a transfer of appropriations. That is specifically for the IT fund that the city has. The reason this is broken out is because this particular fund had a change that is larger than 15% of the original appropriation. So when it hits that 15% mark, I have to do a public hearing, which is also on for tonight. It's the 3rd one for tonight, just to hear any public comment and give a reason why it's changing more than 15%. The reason for it is because of all the IT upgrades that we've started utilizing and a lot of extra equipment that we've started purchasing that the city will own. And the 3rd resolution, 1890, is a resolution for the extension of an interfund loan. If you'll remember last fiscal year, the general fund lent the tourism fund $50,000, and it was a kind of a one-day loan where we would transfer the money into tourism on June 30th, and then in the new fiscal year on July 1st, it gets transferred, essentially paid back to the general fund. This is mainly a budgetary issue within Oregon budget law. With all the changes that tourism has had in that fund, I cannot really pay that back when you look at the end of the year numbers because there hasn't been as much events and revenue coming into tourism to essentially pay that back. So what I'm suggesting is extending that just to July 1st of next year, which would be July 1st, 2020. So a couple weeks from now is when we would actually pay back the general fund that $50,000 instead of doing it this fiscal year, just because of the loss of revenue from COVID and the altercations from that. Are there any questions over any of those extensions or resolutions?
Matt, on monies for tourism, we're not using the Masonic building. Could we save money there because we're paying out what, $4,000 a month?
Well, you're not gonna save $50,000 in the next 13 days.
No, not in 13 days. Okay, I agree.
Yeah, so it's really a budgetary issue where you've approved a budget with, set amount of revenue and set amount of expenses. Well, when you don't have that set amount of revenue, this set of expenses needs to adjust to account for the loss of revenue. And so there's not much we can do on tourism as far as expenses that we've seen, because it's all stuff that we've bought for events and other things. The E2C consulting was nice enough to, allow for her to work a few months without payment, which definitely helps out a little bit, but it just doesn't get us quite into the black where I feel safe enough that, you know, we would technically be breaking budget law if we didn't extend this loan. Does that answer the question, Councilor Topaz?
Well, I was wondering if we could, getting rid of the cost of renting the Masonic building, whether that would have balanced the budget. That was really the question.
No, it would not balance the budget as of this fiscal year.
Okay.
The only thing I lastly wanted to mention on kind of a good note was that I wanted to let you all know, if you haven't seen it on Facebook or anywhere else or heard, that the Shauna and the St. Helens Rec program has been working with Gretchen and the library on some youth kits that are going out. There's about 300 or so kits that are going to be going out to St. Helens elementary school youth this week. And overall, they've created about enough kits to do 250 or so over the next couple weeks as well. And these will be going to the Columbia Food Bank to be given out while they're getting food baskets. There's also a few extra ones that people that aren't getting food donations from Columbia Food Bank, they can call and make an appointment with Shauna at the rec program and make an appointment to go pick one up. There are limited quantities available. And I did want to thank a few companies and businesses that either donated money towards this program or also gave in some sort of enrichment activities that were included in these kits. And those companies are Inroads Credit Union, United Way of Columbia County, Columbia Pacific CCCO, Northwest Early Learning Hub, OSU Extension Office, Next Adventure, Burgerville, and Columbia Health Services that all contributed to those kits that are going out to the kids. So you'll see some Facebook posts from the rec program and Shauna, as well as the library, with information on the kits and how to do instructions and that kind of stuff. But just want to let you know that recreation is still alive and kicking and doing things in the community and making sure that we are present and aware and trying to do as much as we can. That's all I had.
The president.
How are the baseball fields looking?
So for field reservations, I can let you know that we have updated our city park rules to include some language regarding COVID as far as when a reservation takes place. They will need to sign that park rules liability kind of waiver form that basically signifies that you are going to follow the Oregon Health Association guidelines. And we are trusting that you will do that, and you will do that. And if anybody becomes sick, you're held responsible, not the city. So that language is currently at Jordan Ramos's office being reviewed by attorneys. And as soon as we get that back with approval, then I'll have John and Kathy review it for a final go ahead, and then we can open up field reservations at that time.
So it could happen, you could get that Friday, and it could happen.
I could get it back tomorrow. I could get it back next Monday. So I did tell them to rush it as much as they could, because I know we have a lot of people that are waiting, softball organizations and people. So as soon as we can get those open and everything approved, then we will do that.
Okay. Matt, presently those kits are at the food bank and we're being passed out today. So they're doing a good job. They seem to have plenty for the amount of people coming there at the food bank.
That's good. And like I said, there are a few extra ones. And if you hear somebody that, wanted one and didn't get one, have them contact Shauna in the rec program, and they can make an appointment to go out there and meet Shauna and pick one up.
All right. Thank you, Matt.
Yep.
All right, Kathy.
Yes, I do have a few things. On your regular session agenda tonight, there's a resolution to adopt the new City of St. Helens Personnel Policies and Procedures Handbook. This has been in the works since probably at least 2016, and we have gone over it, and we've had legal look over it. We've also had CIS look over it. It was actually the model handbook from CIS, so we're ready to adopt it now. The other items that are under approved and authorized for signature are the community corrections work crews. A lot of these these items are from contracts that expire at the end of June. So we're extending a lot of them, including the concession agreement that we have with Worldwide ATM for the ATM that's out in front of the water or court area. And then also extending an agreement with Mark Comfort for his cleanup of various properties in the city. He's done quite a bit of work with different nuisance properties, so we've been really appreciative of him and working with those people. And then the Mason, Bruce, and Gerard for forestry management services, that came up for renewal. Also, another thing is the lease with the senior center expires at the end of the month, so we didn't have a clause for extension, so we just actually created a new lease, and it's the exact same lease as it was before. It'll be for 5 years, and then I'm sure John will talk about I. Under J is the police department is going to hire somebody under contract to help get the records system caught up with TIA. So they're working on that. And the other thing is at the last meeting, you guys wanted the staff to go back and talk about the janitorial services issue. And we did talk about it, and we are recommending to the council that we enter into a 1-year agreement with CBM. They actually submitted a bid that was just under about $62,000. And we figure if we have the next year to discuss maybe some changes within the city that structurally that we might under Public Works have something like a facilities maintenance division where we may hire a couple of part-time people that would cover the city's buildings so that.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I'm glad you guys are talking.
Yeah, because then if one person takes a vacation, then the other person can fill in. So we've really hashed this out, and we've come to this recommendation with a lot of thought in mind. So
well, then it kind of narrows things down. I mean, where you could actually, job description wise, it's pretty descriptive on what your job is. You can't blame anything. That's your job, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you guys are okay with that, because the contract that we're currently under expires June 30th, I would like to add that materials and services agreement with CBM to the agenda tonight.
And that would fall under the last item, which would be added to it, which would be HIJKL?
Yes.
Oh. I'm okay with that. You got to realize if we tried hiring an employee and paying PERS and all that, we're going to be at least that and then some.
Yeah. Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah, it's a lot faster answer than anything else.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Fast answer.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay. John Walsh.
All right. Thank you, Mayor.
Yep.
Just a shout out to Kathy Payne for all of her work with the personnel policies. This really has been going on and on for several years now, and it really morphs and evolves, and there's new regulations that come and go, and these additions of what was a pretty simple policy is now pretty expanded and meets the models, and at least this point in time will be updated. Still talking about the agenda, I want to talk about the intergovernmental agreement with the Port of Columbia County for the industrial property and marketing. That has been was a little bit delayed because of the compensation piece of that, of how the city would recover expenses and things. I know we've talked about this at previous meetings, but that they're just literally just doing it for nothing. They're taking it off, for the time being. They recognize that a lot of our industrial properties are not where they need to be able to market them, but they just want to have them out there for some developer that might drop out of the sky that wanted to do the improvements, whatever improvements were necessary. And we're, as you're well aware, we're working on the industrial park and the parcelization and the infrastructure financing plan, which includes all the cost estimating. And then there's also the financial cost side of it. We're looking at those documents through the consulting work we've got through the DLCD, and remain hopeful for grants for the waterfront. We're at the same time on a parallel track working on a contingency plan for funding through Business Oregon and other programs through the Infrastructure Finance Authority to either whether it's interim financing or permanent financing, or to get the design work done. We need some working resources to be able to move some of this stuff along. So we had I looked distracted earlier in the meeting. There was a cause here. And if you saw the American Cruise Line bus pull through, try to make it through City Hall here on a great big, probably 7-figure coach, trying to find its way to embark passengers on this weekend. We had earlier in the week we had reached out from a small cruise line. They typically do Portland up to Lewiston, Idaho and back, 5 to 7 day run. And they had asked, because Portland was in phase 1, they were of the understanding that phase 2 communities were acceptable to have. And they reached out to St. Helens as being a likely candidate to embark some passengers. And the plan being to be completely COVID compliant and having limited people on the bus coming out, dropping them off, and taking off on Saturday morning. But the governor's office sent me a message during this meeting that said that the cruise ships are not allowed activity. So after we're trying to queue this all up, and then there's kind of the debate back and forth about working with the health authority and the governor's office, and the point being that I guess the debate being is that cruise ships, as defined by the governor's office, they are interpreting that it doesn't apply to smaller river cruises, and not the ones you see down in Astoria, that type of thing. So if they can figure that out by tomorrow, you may see a really brand new $50 million cruise ship down here picking up people to take to Idaho. If they can't, then you won't. So, but we've got all the insurances in place, and they're paying their docking board fees and all things of that nature. So, but
yeah, I would be a little distracted too if the governor.
A lot of people's recreation plans are in the lurch. So
yeah, yep.
So yeah. Anyway, I think everybody covered the agenda. It's a busy evening. We've got 3 public hearings coming up between 6 and 7 o'clock, and then the regular meeting. So.
Yep. We got a full plate. That's why I'm gonna push council reports till later. Anything else, John?
I should probably, if you haven't seen Bill Monahan on the screen, he's filling in for Tim Ramus. Bill's a longtime city manager, retired now, went back to legal practice, I understand. So
exactly.
Well, welcome, Bill. We look forward look forward to seeing you'll be with us tonight as well.
Actually, I won't be with you tonight.
You won't?
I'll be at the executive session, but not tonight.
Okay. All right. So any other stuff, John?
So, no, I'll yield my time to coordinate the executive session here. So.
Okay.
I'm calling about funding our taxes.
Oh, somebody's calling about their taxes. Okay, so with that, we will be going into, as previously announced, we're going to adjourn, but we're going to be going into executive session under ORS 192.02E, real property transaction, and H, consulting with counsel, potential litigation. So we'll do about a 3-minute, probably, Matt, to get everybody and get set up, right? About 3 minutes?
Yeah, and just to confirm, all city council members, John, myself, and Kathy?
Yep, that's it. That's all we need.
Okay.
Okay? Good. All right.
And Matt, you're going to have me in there too, right?
Yes, I'm sorry, Bill. Yeah.
Bill, there'll also be Michael Philogame from Radler White. So.
And not live and not recording.
Yep, I'm with you.
Okay.
Give me a second, jeez.